let's talk about how to sort of blur the boundary between creating a representation of an information type and creating a representation of an access structure. And that's the idea of an ad. So what is an ad? If you recall, we talked about ads as being a small vignette on the screen that entices you to go somewhere else, to some other item. So we're gonna look at a scenario of how these ads can be created. But think about that idea of the vignette. What is a vignette? Well, in our case, a vignette is going to be a picture. It's going to be a title of the item we want to go to, and it can also include, if we want it to. I chose not to in this case, but oftentimes, if they're a little larger size, they'll include a sentence or two from that item. So what is that? Well, it's a cross-reference. It's an association. It's a link to another item in the system. But it's also sort of a light version of the item itself. It's a transform that we run that neglects most of the information in the item and just puts in a few of the big bits of it, a few of the kind of juicy bits of the item that you want the user to go to. And so you can think of it as an information item. Basically, it's a rendering of the information item that is a light version of the ones that we've been working with, which transform the entire item and give you the whole bulk of the item. But on the other hand, it's also an access structure. It's provided as a link. It's provided as an association. It gives you a way of showing the user there's another item in the system and giving them a method for getting there. So it's a hybrid. It's a combination of a light version of the information type, as well as a link, as well as an association, as well as a cross-reference to that item. Okay, so let's take a look at the schema, instance, and transform behind this. This is certainly more straightforward than the schema, instance, and transform behind the complex link that I showed you in another topic. In this one, we simply have an addref template. And that addref template is going to be used. It's going to be run. See, we say XSL template match addref. When we say match addref, whenever an addref is found inside the instance, this template will be run. How are addrefs found? Addrefs are found, generally speaking, through the apply templates command. And again, if I haven't covered apply templates with you, just understand it semantically. Apply templates. Right? What does that do? It applies some templates. It goes out and finds the templates that are matching with the current element and applies them, runs them, does them, right? And in this case, we found one for addref. And what does addref do? The vast majority of what addref does here is put in a table. Now, I chose to use a table to format this link. Didn't have to use a table. Could have used nested divs, that sort of thing. I do wrap the table in a div. And if you understand the way that CSS styles divs, you'll see that the styling of this div, and this is not something that I'm going to hold you to, you'll understand that the styling of this div allows us to float that div, meaning have it float off to the side and have the text wrap around it. So we have a table, and the table is inside a div. That div positions the table on the screen, and it actually positions it relative to the rest of the text on the screen. It has, in the first row, it just has the words check out this tree. Right? This is a tree site that we're working with. And then in the second row, one column per row, and all I'm trying to do here is stack all of these things one on top of another. So I'm creating a table with rows that only have one column so that I can accomplish that stacking. And the first row says check out this tree. The second row says put in an image of the tree and make it only, and that's the image that's in the item itself. And we'll get to how that happens in a moment. The image that's in the item for that tree, and make it really small, because I only want this to be a vignette. I want this to be a little inset in the page. And then as the mouse over, that's what goes in the title attribute of an image, put the title of the tree. So notice I've taken now 2 bits of information from the item. And then down below, I have the next row, and the next row formats a link. It uses the ID of the tree that we're pointing to, and it also uses the title of the tree that we're pointing to. Now, there is one more place down here where it says apply template, select X description. I originally wrote this template and I wanted to put the first sentence of the description in here, and that's what that does. And then notice what I did. This is a trick that I do sometimes, and in fact I did it here and then I forgot to take it out. I put a little X before the word description. All that does is it means that there is no X description. There's a description, but there's no X description. So that's an X path that will never be found. And so if it's never found, then this command doesn't do anything. So I've effectively turned the command off by breaking the X path. I do that a lot. It's a very useful way of keeping the command in there, but commenting it out, so to speak, making it so that it won't work. And anytime you have an X path, well, I won't say anytime, but for example, if you did a for each and you broke the X path, it would never execute. Well, none of the for eaches would happen. If you do a value of and you break the X path, the value won't come out. So oftentimes, if you break the X path, the command will break, but it won't break the things around it, and so you kind of like have commented out that command.